Hey now! It's the Hey Now Howard podcast, the first and only fan podcast dedicated to the king of all media, Howard Stern, and all things Howard Stern Show. I'm Daniel Coyne.
My name is Tyler Cortad. Today we're going to be talking about Howard's trip to LA.
This is Beto. He's as bad as can. He knows he's the best. This is Beto. He's as bad as can. He knows he's the best. This is Beto.
Welcome back to the Hey Now Howard podcast. We appreciate you. Took a little bit of a hiatus. We took the summer off, much like the Stern Show. Took some time. We went to Africa with Fred.
Yeah.
Went to Howard's vacation house in Florida.
Mm-hmm. Saw some Bobo.
Took Bobo's driving classes.
Wore his toupee.
Took some time off, but appreciate you coming by. Whatever platform, we're on Spotify, Apple iTunes, YouTube. Click like, subscribe, 5 stars. Love us with all your heart.
We sure do appreciate from all our 10 listeners.
We love you, bubs. We have millions of listeners from I think billions of listeners by now, all across the globe. We hired a full-time translator for all the fan mail we've been getting.
Yeah, we haven't been able to leave our apartment.
Our interwebs are blowing up all over the place.
Yeah.
On the way over here, Tyler lives in Hollywood. I saw a homeless guy taking a dump. That was cool.
That's Hollywood for you, man. I meant to warn you. It's not a pretty place, and I'm sure Howard got to see that whenever he came out here. That it's the actual Hollywood proper, kind of a shithole.
That's a great segue, because I heard the Stern Show is in Los Angeles recently, Tyler.
They were. Yeah, they came to visit me. But yeah, I'm sure Howard didn't get to see any of the shithole parts of Hollywood, because I'm sure he only saw
the
Beverly Hilton and the Sirius studio.
The recording studio.
And that was it. But yeah, man, those LA shows, I was telling Daniel this, there was probably the three shows they had, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, were some of the best radio shows that I've heard from the Stern Show in years, man. Like, I loved them. I thought they were just jam-packed with celebrities and interviews, entertaining bits and segments. Yeah, I really thought that they just did a great job, and I'm sure that took a lot of prep work to get that in there, because they packed a lot into those 3 days.
Yeah, I agree. I was thinking maybe that it was just going to kind of be the Stern Show in LA and a few more celebrities here and there, but they really went all out. This was maybe their best production since like the birthday show.
Right.
Probably the last time they were outside a studio.
I know.
Really on a scale like that, and the amount of celebrities and trying to, with musical performances as well and interviews, and
it was just like, it seemed like all the fat was trimmed from a regular Stern Show, and it was just like this trimmed down, really cool,
like on steroids.
It was like the Stern Show on steroids. I mean, they did a really good job of not making it feel rushed, because I mean, in some cases, like the Monday show, they had Jimmy Kimmel, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Adam Levine, Robert Downey Jr., and Jennifer Aniston, all A-list celebrities, but nothing felt rushed about that show. You know what I mean? It was just, they did a really good job of making it seem seamless, and everybody kind of got their fair share of time. But I was thinking, I was like, who would you credit with that? I mean, that's got to be a lot of the back office work, not necessarily Howard with the planning.
Yeah, absolutely. Gary, I'm sure he has
he's the
a
booker,
team.
yeah.
And then I'm sure Sirius wanted to make it a point to get them in there. So maybe I'm sure that Sirius had them in building for other shows as well, but definitely rolled out the red carpet for Howard, and why wouldn't they? He was kind of put them on the map, and back when it used to be Sirius versus XM, that's what it was, right? Sirius versus XM, when they used to be different, and then they
merged, and then now there's Sirius XM Pandora.
Always Sirius, so kind of helped put them on the map, and helps when he gets paid like $1 trillion as well.
Sure,
so
why not?
It's very nice of him to help out Sirius in that regard.
It was cool though to see how the celebrities receive Howard. You know what I mean? Like, just to see how they come in and they really do love him. You know what I mean? Like, and they've really come around on Howard as far as, Jen Aniston and Robert Downey Jr. To see these, a lot of them didn't even have anything to promote, and they still came in just to welcome, quote unquote, Howard to LA, which was, I thought, super cool. Arnold Schwarzenegger, I mean, obviously he's promoting Terminator and stuff like that, but Yeah, it just seems like they have just a real genuine affection for Howard, and that was cool to see because I think Howard has an ego as well, and I think it's nice for him to see that too.
Yeah, and everyone that was involved in the show had a history with Howard. Adam Levine, Jimmy Kimmel, big fans of the show. Seth Rogan's been on a handful of times. Jennifer Aniston, Howard officiated her wedding, didn't they? Or, yeah.
Jen Aniston?
Yeah.
No, that wasn't her.
Yeah,
that
it was.
What?
I'm telling you.
She didn't get married to Justin.
Look
Theroux.
up, Stat Boy. Look it up.
Yeah,
we hired an intern as well. We're balling.
Intern, please look that up. As I race to my computer.
Our intern is Ash Jeeves.
Was it her? I don't think it was her.
Fans, we have a live chat going on Twitch. We're live streaming from all across the world. We have fans in India screaming that he officiated her wedding. Dean Stern. No, Allison Stern. Either way, they all had a deep history. Well, maybe not to me more, but besides that, everyone fans of the show, and I agree. They welcomed Howard to California, and it wasn't rushed to the fact that they all had somewhat. You all walked away from the interview with something that you wouldn't get from anywhere but the Stern Show, which is also cool for them. When you think about someone like Jennifer Aniston, how many talk shows has she been on in her career?
Right. Yeah.
So it's got to be a little bit refreshing where you actually get some curveballs thrown to you and genuinely get thrown off guard and laugh.
I mean, it wasn't her first time on the show. She was talking about how she was on before she was even on Friends. She was like the promo girl.
Model.
Just a model that came on. It didn't seem like she had the best experience. Howard kind of acknowledged that he was a psychopath back then. But she, obviously they're friends outside of, this, so I'm sure it was kind of an easy transition for her to just be in the studio and talk to him. But I thought that was a really cool interview as well. What I was wondering, though, is what do you think Howard came to LA more for? Do you think it was because Sirius really wanted him to, or was it more a little self-serving in the fact that it wants a push for his book to be, released for Christmas?
I don't think the book. Well, I guess if he is going to do these talk shows, Ellen and all that, he did come out to LA for that as well, so that helps with the books. But ultimately, this gives me some hope that he's going to re-sign for additional years on top of this. Because I'm thinking, if his contract's up in a year and a half, 2 years, why would you come out to LA and put all this effort forward?
Right. Well, that's what makes me think. I was like, it might be for the book. Okay, but let me ask you this: do you think if he didn't have a book, if there was no book, would he come to LA? Just because Sirius was opening a new studio?
That's a great question. I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, you're right.
You know what I mean? If Sirius is opening a new studio,
I tried to think that meant he was coming back forever.
Yeah, no, I doubt it. I think that if he didn't write that book and if he didn't want to sell him a couple more copies of the book before Christmas, there's no chance in hell he's coming out to LA. So I do think that was at least half of the reason that he was out here and going on all the talk shows that he did.
Okay, so I did a little bit of research. I asked Jeeves, and I was wrong. But there's some half-truths in here. Well, not really.
No, he had a celebrity.
But Jimmy Kimmel officiated the wedding.
Whose wedding?
Jennifer Aniston and Justin Theroux.
Yes. And then Howard, but
you didn't know.
I didn't know that. But yeah, sure. But Howard had Mark Consuelos or something.
So that's when he was there talking about Orlando Bloom's cock came from that wedding.
What wedding? Jennifer Aniston.
Jennifer Aniston, Justin Theroux. But yeah, he's friends with her, vacations with her.
So I was wondering also, obviously.
Wait, what did you say?
What?
Yeah, you said something that Mark
Consuelos officiated his wedding with Beth.
Yeah.
Right? That's Kelly Ripa's husband. I don't fucking know.
I don't even know who that is. Is he famous?
He's
his name
soap
sounds
opera.
famous.
He's married to Kelly Ripa, soap opera guy.
That's what he's famous.
Yeah. I mean, Kelly Ripa's going to be the most famous of the
worst
two.
things to be famous for.
I was going to say, though, as far as celebrities coming around, on Howard and kind of being a little more affectionate towards him and wanting to be on the show a little bit more, You can attribute it to Howard turning a new leaf and how he talks about how he's been in psychotherapy, he's been a lot more introspective, and he wants to do great interviews, and that's been his draw. However, I think that Jimmy Kimmel has just as much to do with that than anything else, because if Jimmy Kimmel's basically the mayor of Hollywood, he's best friends with every single celebrity you can think of, and Jimmy being best friends with Howard, I think that Jimmy's putting the bug in all those celebrities' ears. Like, no, if you should like Howard. Listen to Howard, or he's going to give you a great interview. Don't be scared to go on his show. Things like that. I think that there's a lot. I think that Jimmy Kimmel probably has a lot to do with that. And
maybe that's why you had him on the show right off the bat.
Yeah. So I do think that Jimmy Kimmel is a good liaison from for Howard to the other celebrities that may have been a little skeptical if they should go on his show or not.
Something I found interesting, didn't it seem like the staff was on a very short leash out in Los Angeles and they got very stern talking tos, no pun intended?
Yeah, they seem terrified, right?
This is a larger topic that I want to dive into maybe on its own episode, but I think the entire staff is terrified of Howard.
Yeah.
And Robin and Fred.
Oh, Fred is an alien. They're not, nobody's interacting with
not
Fred.
Robin, definitely.
Robin, I'm scared of Robin.
Yeah.
I'm not even in the room. I'm terrified of her.
Matter. But yeah, and it comes across on the radio a lot, and also we're going to talk about things that you won't hear on the wrap up show. So we're going to talk about like names like Marcy Turk. So
yeah,
this is like this is like bad. That's like a bad word around the Stern show, but.
Like people in
like
suits are going to show up at my apartment right now for mentioning the name.
Marcy Squad. Yeah, she so she basically is well, we won't go too deep into it now, but she's kind of the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain. Is it the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The man behind the curtain.
Yeah.
She's that's rumored. I don't know if Howard he's brought it up very, very a few times, but whenever he has, he dismisses it immediately as saying, she's,
or he blacks it out of the show on the replays.
Show, yeah.
If anyone talks about it,
right.
So the reason I bring it up now is because when we talk about things like the staff being on a short leash, I have to think that that's coming from the Marcy Turks of the world, and there's so many instances on the show now that they'll say, you know who to talk to off stage, or you know who to get approval from, and it wasn't approved. And it seems like it just runs the gamut on the whole office. Everyone's scared of her. If anyone mentions her,
right.
Matthew Berry was the last guy to mention her, and he hasn't been on the show since. Or mentioned.
I felt that uncomfortableness.
He's been blacklisted.
Yeah, I felt that uncomfortableness across the airwaves. You remember, when he mentioned it, everybody just shut up. They probably had 5 or 6 staffers in the room. And he mentioned it in
the context of, you can't mention this on air.
Yeah.
And then it was blacked out of every subsequent replay.
Was that blacked out too on the replays? Oh my god!
Because they replayed that on the app, that whole bit, and that was never mentioned on the whole replay.
So wild, yeah. So I don't get it, but here's the thing. I get why the staff would be afraid of Howard. Howard. Think about it. The staff, besides the people that have been there forever, they're a lot younger. Your Mamets and your Steve Nowickis and. Even Sal and Richard, obviously younger than. So there's and Howard is this iconic figure. Hollywood sirens. You got to just deal with that if you can hear it through the mics. But Howard is this iconic figure, so he does have this presence. You know what I mean? And obviously, they want to please him, and they're all there, in a sense, fans that have the opportunity to work on this show too.
Right.
So,
but that's how it's always been, though.
That's how it's always been. And
but that's why that's also to that point. That's a great point, because that's why he also respected Artie more and comics that come in rather than Richard won a contest. Sal was a prank caller.
Exactly. Shuley was a prank caller, or not a prank caller, but just
he would call and contribute. Yeah, call in.
So a lot of these guys are fans who looked up to Howard, and Howard can kind of continue that not facade, but that presence that he has with those guys. You know what I mean?
And I think also what it is he just doesn't have the energy for that admin GM bullshit.
Right.
So, but he wants someone that's going to hold that standard of quote unquote, getting things done, which is like supposedly their bond together. This book, which is really just like a book about how to do business.
Yeah, you read that, right?
Yeah, it has nothing to do with like joining a cult.
Right. Yeah.
It's basically how to organize your thoughts in
right.
life. So they met through that, but she's this, and the Jeremy is like her right hand guy, and there's this big presence, and everyone's kind of scared to really speak freely. But I think Howard needs someone that's going to bitch at Benji all the time for being late, or
hold people accountable for things.
Yeah, he just doesn't have the time for that, and he's talked about it for years about how he should be more strict. So maybe just that's what's actually happening.
Right. It's a way for him to kind of put somebody in place to do that, and doesn't have to do it himself, which he shouldn't have to. I mean, he's the kind of the talent when it comes down to it. It is his show, but it's like, I'm sure he has final say on a lot of things, but he doesn't want to be doing the day-to-day, like, monitoring of shit. But I will say that I'm sure he's put the fear of God into his staff, where it's like, he probably let them know, this woman, Marcy, she has free reign. If she wants to fire you, she can fire you. So I'm sure that's why they're pretty much terrified of her, because, I mean, she's, he probably gave her some carte blanche with that,
Absolutely. And does that make a watered-down product on the air? Because think about years ago when they'd reminisce about going to Robin's Lake House, or Artie would rent out a restaurant for everyone, or they get together and have these parties, besides, like, the Christmas party that they're going to have every year. There was much more of that social, and Howard, of course, would talk about how he was miserable the whole time and didn't want to talk to anyone, but he still went.
Right.
Nowadays, I don't even think he'd even entertain the thought.
Yeah, so I'm torn on this. So it's like, I don't know if it's that, or is it just more a simple answer where it's, they're 15 years older. Howard's 60. They don't want to do shit. Like, they don't want to do it. They don't.
He's like 65.
65, yeah. And Robin too. So it's like, they don't want to do it anymore. They did it. They've been there, done that. So it's like, yeah, you could say, oh, you've changed. Like, yeah, of course they have. Or older. I'm an old man. Right. I don't want, you know what I mean? Like, I mean,
but isn't that one of the things that makes the Stern Show beautiful?
What's that?
Like that camaraderie, like that. They'd all hang out together and then bullshit about dumb stories from the restaurant.
Yes, I do agree with that. But I think the main focal point of the Howard Stern Show that makes it beautiful is the authenticity of it. Where if he were to be, going out and doing all this stuff,
is lacking too now, though.
You think so? So I could go the other way with that. I could say, like, maybe it's just a simple answer where he's like, this is what I feel like doing, and if I do anything else, then it's not going to be authentic. You know what I mean? So if I'm going out and I'm like talking about going to, maybe, I don't know. This is, again, just a theory, so I don't know. Or there could be a larger hand at play, which would be like the Marcy Turk thing, which would prevent a lot of these things.
I mean, I don't think that she's like, telling them to go to a party on the weekend or not, but I just think it reverts back to the greater maybe things that comes through on the radio sometimes of now he's just kind of on a different level, whereas before it'd be more Artie busting his balls, stuttering John, making fun of him.
Right.
Now Howard's like 20 levels, and Fred never like challenges him.
That's
like, when was the last time someone challenged Howard on the air?
No
like,
one.
Legitimately. Or you could listen to clips from the 90s, like him and Fred would battle often.
Fred has not
him
said
and Gary
a single
would battle.
thing. Right.
Dude, Gary's terrified of Howard. Fred, he's not scared of him, but he just doesn't even go there.
That's one thing I'm trying to, you're totally right. Robin will push back a little bit, but it's very tongue-in-cheek. It's not very,
And I think Robin's just content doing her job and going home, Not like that's a bad thing, but she, she's the queen. She does her.
What do you think that is? Like, that had to be like a change in something. What did he say? Like, nobody challenged me. Like you wouldn't. Like, what actually? What actually? But that's what I think is the
greater thing that we're talking about. I think it's just that whole. I think that's what's building up behind the scenes. Is there's like this separation now, where now it's like. Because there's even things like now that they all dress business casual, and like Gary's wearing like a little business suit, and Jason, all this,
right.
And they used to, and Howard used to wear like a cutoff and like sweatpants, and
right?
Yeah, of course, right. Whatever that was 30 years ago, everyone's fashion changes, but it just goes to show it just kind of used to be more that raw, whatever, Stern show, say whatever. It just seems like a little bit more corporate. Hey, did you wear your khakis for your business casual?
Sure.
Or else you're going to get docked by HR.
Yeah.
That would never happened in the 90s.
No. That is a good point. You're absolutely right about that. It definitely, I don't see, but that's the thing. Yes, I agree with all that. But does the product suffer? For me, not so much where I really have an issue with it. You know what I mean? Yes, it's different. But the output,
this is just us going super deep on them.
But the output,
podcast, for God's sakes, about a show.
No, I get it. But you look on Reddit and people are fucking losing their minds over this kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So it's worth breaking up. But for me, like personally, I don't think the output has suffered because of these changes. So I don't care that much. But somebody might be like looking at this, be like, "What the fuck is this bullshit?" Howard's wearing John Varvatos now, and everybody's in khakis and button ups. Like, fuck this
right.
show. Yeah, fuck this show. So I get that too, but that's not, my true fandom. Like I obviously watched. We talked about this before, but I watched in the '90s and watched the E Channel and stuff. But I was too young to really become a big fan. You know what I mean? I knew of the show. I didn't really start becoming a fan of the show until they moved to Sirius. So, that's whenever for me things.
But the
started.
beginning of Sirius was like the most badass.
Yeah, that's when. And Howard talks about that. He's like, we. Obviously this is his answer for it, but he's like, we tried to like be outrageous when we first got here, and then we toned it down afterwards because we realized it wasn't that fun.
Yeah, and they'll still go to raunchy topics, and we've covered that on other shows. I'm not going to sit here and say it's a PC show, but it makes me sad a little bit.
You miss it? You miss the old days?
Exactly. I miss them
hey, that's why you got Sternthology, pal.
Even that is super curated.
Yeah, I know.
That's the other thing. This is the show that's super raw about everything. And why are you going to curate every playback, block out sections of the show? You can check out we did a whole episode about him versus Wendy Williams, where
we got to go back and do it
awesome
again.
Rant. Oh, I was blacked out. I heard we did an episode about Wendy Williams.
Yeah, somebody told us it's on there. Yeah.
That got 7 billion downloads. That was a pretty good one.
Wow, I did a really good job with that. Wish I could remember.
But he goes, and that's kind of the old Howard coming back, and then he blocks it out of the replays, and then he never talks about it again. So what is it?
And this is it. And this trip to L.A. Pretty much is the answer. He wants this, like these 3 L.A. shows that he had with the celebrities and everything. Yeah, that's the direction. I mean,
but what celebrity wouldn't have come on?
I don't know. I don't know. I just think it's it's a shift in everything. I'm not saying he's doing everything with a calculated move. Like, I'm going to change this so I get this celebrity to come on. I just think it's a mental shift.
I think he's super calculated about everything he does, though.
You think?
When it comes to his show,
I meant not say calculated. Like, of course he's calculated. I just didn't think it was specific enough to be like, I want to do this so I get this certain celebrity. I just think that it's he's shifted his mindset so he can have types of shows that he did with the amount of celebrities he would come on. I guess in his head that he probably didn't think were they getting that great of guests before the series? I mean, they were getting great guests, but it would be those little short form interviews. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to,
and he's gotten better at interviews just in his own right.
But I'm saying I do think that he, even though he doesn't like live the lifestyle of like a Hollywood person and out at the dinners all the time and seeing people, I do think that he likes the respect that he gets from other celebrities in this field.
Oh, absolutely.
And so whatever the shift is,
he loves being a celebrity.
He does love being a celebrity. He talked about it just today. He was talking to Trevor Noah, and Trevor Noah was talking about how he was huge in South Africa. He was one of the biggest stand-up comedians in South Africa and around the world, but unknown in America. He said he came here, moved to New York, and he said he walked around the streets and nobody knew who he was. He was pretty much anonymous, and he loved it. And Howard pretty much said, he's like, if that was me, I'd kill myself. Like, he's like, he needs that. Like and he told him that. He's like, I need that. So I think coming out to LA and having that type of thing, I think that in his head, and it could be true too, that the shift that he made with his show, with his personal life, with everything, and what we're talking about is where the evolution of the show or de-evolution of the show, however you're looking at it. He thinks that this is the type of crowd that he's now going to attract, and I think that he likes that. So I think that he's moving in the direction that he wants to. that makes any sense. So,
yeah, and he's taking it in the direction he wants to.
It just depends on if you like it or
how
not.
many people
If you're on board
direction.
or not. Right.
Which
sure.
he said many times he doesn't give a shit.
He doesn't give a shit. And I think that again, that's where the authenticity comes in, where it's like he never gave a shit. Like, I mean, but he does give a shit.
Which one
is it? We don't.
And all this comes to the original point was to bring it back to these LA shows. And again, the reason I say it's the man behind the curtain is it's because always of. We talked about this off air. You know how you were supposed to act in LA. We were very specific about everyone and their roles. And if you were going to be coming, you better contribute a certain amount. It's like, what happened to fucking rock and roll, man?
Right. So, I don't know. But speaking of that, whenever they're talking about... Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead. You're upset.
I'm
upset.
upset.
Daniel's upset.
And I loved it. It was a great show. I
thought it was the best shows I've ever heard. So I'm more optimistic about the direction, I feel like. Because, I do appreciate
these were three good. I mean, these were three awesome shows. But why does the staff just have to be so... I don't know. Every time they come in the studio, I guess it just all comes back to... I think it does reflect on the product because... There hasn't been a contrarian for Howard in years.
Yeah.
Unless there's just... I can't even think of one because if there's just a random clip of a celebrity talking about him, he'll go off. Unless it's Wendy Williams and he blacks out of the show. But for the most part, he'll say little things here and there. Most of the guests get along. I guess it just... There used to be... Half of the fun used to be that conflict. And the staff...
There's inter-staff conflict.
The staff... That'll happen. And even that's not near... It's not as interesting, but... It just seems like when people do come in, they're just terrified, and then they're all just waiting to throw each other under the bus for Howard to see who gets their head chopped off.
I shouldn't say the new thing. That's how it's always been. Like people throwing each other under the bus for this inter-staff stuff. But nobody's going to go after Howard. That's basically... I mean, that's pretty much we have to accept that going forward because we're not seeing anybody challenge Howard. But I don't need that. I enjoy the I'm so into the show that I enjoy the inter-staff conflict. I mean, yeah, some of it gets fucking repetitive, but I do enjoy some of the inter-staff conflict. So I don't need anybody to really challenge Howard from them. It would be nice to see somebody like the higher ups, like Gary or Fred, or even Robin sometimes, too, to challenge Howard on some things where like Howard's kind of going off on a rant where he really, they could challenge him and they have some point of view, but they just don't. Fred, I don't know what happened to Fred, man. Fred, like,
he just focused on the sound effects.
Yeah, Fred is just ready for an absolutely, and then Howard bashes him over the head if he's not ready for something, and he just totally puts his tail between his legs, and that's it. I'm like, man. But,
yeah, I don't know. And we're going to do a whole Fred episode. He's like both of our heroes.
Fred week. No. Can we record? Is it everything good? Or okay, great.
We made a bad mistake. So earlier we were recording this same podcast and we were talking all about Howard's trip and Caitlin and Brent and there was one point that I distinctly looked at Tyler and said, "We're recording, right?" And then at that time we checked and we were recording, but then what happens?
And then about 20 minutes later, Dan looks at me and goes, "We are recording, right?" And then I made a joke and I said, Dan asked me about every 10 minutes if we're recording, and I said, one of these times I'm just going to say yes, even though we're not going to be recording. Well, joke's on me.
That was one of these times.
That was one of these times because kept on talking. Nothing was recording. Anywho, we're back.
So we just talked for about 30 minutes without recording it, but we're going to try to get back on pace here. And let's talk about the first time that J.D. Harmeyer ever smoked weed was on this California trip. And turned into an awesome bit.
That was one of the funniest things I've ever listened to. I laughed so fucking hard. Mainly because Ronnie stole the show.
As always.
Yeah, he tends to do. But Oh my god, dude! Ronnie being high is the funniest thing I've ever heard. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The whole thing started with obviously Seth Rogan coming in, and Howard and Seth,
Snoop Dogg,
But it started with just Seth and Howard and Seth talking. Yeah, they have a good rapport with each other. Seth's been in a bunch of times. Seth Rogen's one of my favorite actors and directors, producers, so I just enjoy listening to Seth. He's
a big fan as well. If you've listened to earlier podcasts,
yeah. Didn't you talk about how you hated Seth Rogen?
I don't remember doing that, but you told me I did.
I feel like you did.
I've never listened back to these, but I think I did.
I feel like you hated on him hard, and I was like, "Why do you hate Seth Rogen so much?" You're like, "I hate him."
No,
am I crazy? I don't know.
I mean, it's kind of the same movie 20 times.
Yeah,
Superbad was really good.
Yeah, but he was barely in Superbad. He wrote Superbad.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah. Anyway, I love Seth Rogen, but obviously a weed connoisseur, and so is Snoop Dogg. So they brought them in to discuss weed. For the interview itself, though, whenever they were in, was fucking hilarious. Just like those two, just aesthetically are polar opposites, but whenever it comes to it, like they are actually very similar, and it's very cool to watch them together.
Yeah, and one point that they made is they were able to just go in the back and get stoned in their trailers, which is something you wouldn't have. Although guests have smoked weed in the New York studios just because they're famous and they don't give a shit. But for the most part, that's pretty frowned upon.
Yeah.
But out in California, hey, whatever.
Hey, why not?
So they went to the country's first cafe.
Yeah, Lowell Farms, which is right next
close to where we're recording right now.
Yep.
And Ronnie stole the show, and it's so funny. His voice went to the same pitch as him being hypnotized.
Yeah.
And essentially acting very similar, and just absolutely hilarious stuff from Ronnie.
I know, man. Ronnie's cracking me up. It's almost instantly. It's the moment he takes the first hit of weed. He just starts with that smoker, that smoker's laugh immediately, and then JD, I don't even think really got high, but just is getting a kick out of Ronnie. Yeah, it's just cracking me up, man. That was so fucking funny. I love that bit.
And it was funny too. Gary was kind of a bummer the whole time after too, because he almost got mad at Ronnie for getting too high.
That's what Ronnie said, but Ronnie was also he was the
or is
life.
That just his paranoia?
He was paranoia said, and he was the life of the party for the first part, laughing. He was at one point he was hitting on one of the bud tenders there. He's like, "Oh, look how fucking hot she is."
What's your name, sweetheart? He's 70.
Yeah, I know. What time you get off work?
Yeah.
It's like, oh my god.
You guys got any alcohol in this joint?
That was the best line. You guys got any alcohol in this joint? And he's laughing. I was fucking dying. But yeah, and then he got real paranoid afterwards and thinking everybody hates him.
Yeah, and speaking of the guys in the back, it was interesting to hear some kind of behind the scenes inner workings about what staff members got what bits on, and from a creative standpoint for those writers, that has to be very rewarding when things get on the show, but then also heartbreaking when things don't.
Yeah, for sure. Brent was one of the first ones. I mean, I know Mehmet was also one of the staff members that was butthurt that he didn't get his stuff on, but Brent was really in particular upset about this JD and Ronnie smoking weed bit, that he wasn't a part of it. One, because, Brent considers himself a weed connoisseur as well, so he thought that he could add something to it. But, he thought that he could produce this bit, and he was really, really pissed that he, couldn't get on the air with, this type of bit. Other staff members think that it was some other outside factors why he was upset so much. Caitlyn having sex with a porn star. But, this could be a reason that he was kind of all, stomping around the office whenever they got back and kind of, butthurt about it.
And then with even him being upset, you had Chris Wilding upset at him because he totally blew up the dating bit with him going out with the girls in L.A. And even when he did supposedly get laid on the third date that he barely mentioned on someone that messaged him on Instagram, he didn't loop them in to come record it. He didn't send them video, audio. And these guys are obviously looking for content to make about that storyline, so kind of left them hanging. So a lot of people walked away pissed. And again, there was that messaging behind the curtain of if you're going to come to LA, you better contribute, you better bring it. So these guys feeling that extra pressure, I'm sure that he was on backstage. And there was a lot of planning that went into this.
For sure. Yeah, I understood Brent's frustration though. You know, it's like he said it in a way of, you know, he's like, I thought these shows were great. I'm so happy about how they went. I just wish I was able to be a part of it a little bit more. And I could see how the other staff members were like, "Oh, fuck you, dude!" Like, you know what I mean? Like, we had great shows. Like, what do you like? Why do you have to be so selfish about it? And I feel like, but I get it in the sense of, and I might have said this before. It's like, you know, being in a football game, you guys won the game. It's exciting, but you didn't get in the game. So it's like, yeah, you're happy for your team, but you also wanted to contribute and you get in there. So I get it from that standpoint.
And did Mehmet take this as an opportunity to do some shtick when it came to his PowerPoint presentation?
Yeah, dude.
His bit.
Dude,
on Hannibal Lecter.
I can't get over if Mehmet is for real or not. I go back and forth all the time. There's like, because if he is doing shtick, he's really fucking good at it. Because like I honestly look at, like, I watch the app and I watch the video, and he looks for real.
Seems
like
genuine.
Seems genuine. Like, and if he is genuine, he's insane. He's an insane person. Like he's just
one way or the other.
Yeah. So like, this commercial that he tried pitching to Howard with, you know, oh my God, where Ellen DeGeneres skinning Ellen, and he's wearing Jimmy Kimmel's skin suit and Ellen's skin suit, and it's like, Jesus, you're insane. But
I did love his pitch mentality though.
I love
next
it.
slide.
All right, next slide, dude. So it is funny. So whatever, regardless of what's going on, and it is actually funny. So if it is shtick, it's funny. But if it is genuine, it's funny. It's very entertaining. But I still can't figure it out, and that bothers me as a listener to know if it's shtick or not. So I really don't know. But bottom line, Mehmet is actually pretty damn funny when it comes to that, regardless of how it checks out. You know what's funny? Mehmet is actually one of the staffers that will challenge Howard in the slightest bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know,
and Benji actually.
Benji too, a little bit. But Benji, I feel like, is more sticky when he does it. But Mehmet, like, almost like, you know, like, it's not even challenges Howard, but it's like, I'm trying to think of the right word, because like he definitely, he's like, he thinks that everybody hates on him. He thinks that Howard's against him. He thinks that everybody's against him.
I think he thinks that him and Howard like have a connection at some point, or he puts himself
really
on
don't.
like a talent level of Howard,
yeah,
or something. You know, he puts himself at an elevated level,
right? So he feels like he can talk to him on that type of level almost.
Because even he likened his bit not getting on, like, "Oh, what, Howard? You've never faced something like this in your career."
Howard's like,
"What?
Are you kidding
me?"
Yeah, right.
He had the FCC trying to ruin his career.
Exactly.
But I think with Mehmet, compared to some other staffers that we mentioned before that had a history of calling into the show, he just like kind of applied and got the job.
Right.
He didn't like worship Howard growing up.
Exactly.
So I think that maybe plays off a little bit, that he's not super intimidated, that even like Jason growing, like even old staff members.
Yeah.
Even that came up as a regular staff, even not necessarily on talent. Someone like Jason, a little bit more behind the scenes, still talks about, I only went to colleges that could get the Stern show, and I never miss an episode.
We talk about this even just like your daily workplace, like where if you're a kid fresh out of college and your first job is that's all you know. You know what I mean? Like how Daniel works in advertising, so it's like a lot of the people in the ad agency, that they're out of college, they've worked there for 10 years, and that's all they know. They only know the way that they do business, and that's the only thing they know of the workplace. And if you had a figure like Howard as your boss, that's the only thing you know as well. So someone like Mehmet might be, I know he was in the military for a little bit, so like people that have a little bit more of a background with other workplaces might not look at this Howard as this godlike figure like some other staff members might.
Yeah, and I don't think he grew up as a huge fan, and he didn't get on the show by submitting bits. Mm-hmm. He might have just applied for a job and got it. And he's a talented guy, but it'd be the difference of someone worshiping Letterman their whole life and getting a job, or someone out of Harvard that got the job.
So you say that like he's a talented guy, like, and it makes me wonder though, because like we only obviously see what comes out on air. What, like, I want to just be a fly on the wall in one of those meetings, as far as like a pitch meeting, or like, because like, is it really how they say it is, like once they get on the air, or is it really like, a pitch meeting as any other show would be, like a Jimmy Kimmel show or Jimmy Fallon show or Saturday Night Live, where they're all pitching bits and sketches and things like that? Or is it different in the in the Howard Stern universe? I really wonder.
Well, I think with the pitch meetings, it seems like something that it has its regulars. Will.
Sure. Howard seems to love Will, by the way. Like, I feel like he's
been
never
on
had
the
a
show
bad.
for a while.
He's been on the show for a while, but like Howard never has a bad thing to say about Will. I feel like.
Yeah.
And they always seem to be on the same page.
But I think this goes back to that point that those are their steady guys.
Mm-hmm.
Probably puts in a ton of work. And then when someone like Mamet comes in, it's like an event that he goes to the pitch meetings in the morning.
Right.
Whereas these guys we go every morning for the past 20 years.
Sure.
And same thing with Benji. He like acted like it was a huge deal. I'm going to start showing up to meetings now. I'm going to start working on Thursdays.
Yeah, how long did that last?
Yeah. He's got the same. He's like the only person on par with Robin and Fred and
right.
Fred probably does more behind the scenes, but Robin and Howard's schedule.
Sure.
Somehow Benji got that schedule. But these guys are more, the hard workers behind the scenes.
They're there 5 days a week.
When Mamet is like walking around talking about how it's such an event that he went to a pitch meeting and is contributing ideas, isn't that part of your job?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I like I said, I'd love to be a fly on the wall in one of those
But I think
meetings.
he is talented because he does bring that element of you don't know whether he's completely insane or talented. I honestly think he's just half fucking around.
He has to be half fucking around. And I did like, it was his idea for the Jeremiah Stafford bit, which was a very good bit that happened this past week. Or
but
last
if you
week,
think about it, look at how much, ever since he's kind of come into the Stern universe, he's constantly had stuff. He used to have all this stuff about his apartment being in the middle of the hood.
Right. That was like whenever I was first.
That was kind of his original stuff.
I'm a cowboy.
And then, that was like later.
Yep.
So then they're talking about him.
I'm a broken man. That's one of my favorite drops.
Him getting laid on Tinder dates. That was talked about for months, and he was kind of the young staff member. That was all
like
these
reporting
dates.
from the Tinder front lines.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Reporting. Exactly. Bits on the ground.
Right.
And he's always gotten bits on the air. That his girlfriend was a bit. But I think that this is exactly the result of that, because when he does come on the radio, he's a big personality. He's funny, and people like him or hate him. And I'm sure Howard loves a character like that.
Right.
That regardless, you're going to get an emotional response.
I think Howard's biggest thing is you come on with a point of view, and Mamet definitely does not ever have the most popular point of view, but he comes on with a point of view, and I'm sure that's why Howard appreciates him coming on the air.
Yeah. And he has a unique one, even if he's completely insane.
Yeah, exactly. But so I have to ask this as we wrap up this podcast. This trip to LA, I think that it was meaningful for Howard because he obviously does not do it often. It's the first time he's done this in 15 years. I don't know if this is going to how this will affect his negotiations for his next contract, if there is one, if he's going to retire, because that's coming up very soon. Do you know the date? Was it under 2 years, or a year and a half?
Year and a half. Yeah.
Year and a half, I think. So, I don't know. Do you think that this trip maybe reinvigorated him to want to sign again and kind of get back out there and keep this going? Or do you think this was more of a final hurrah almost to come out to LA and see these types of people and see that? So how do you see it?
This is giving me some hope. I'm going to go with, I think this means he's going to resign at least another 2 or 3 years. I think this is a lot of effort to put forth. He doesn't like to travel. And this is doing Sirius a really big solid. Then again, he's got a ton of Sirius stock, so he's got some vested interest there.
Yeah.
But he's investing a lot of time to grow a company that he's maybe leaving in a year. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think Old Howie stays.
That
means our podcast is going to continue to spread all across the globe.
What are all our fans going to do if he retires? Screw Howard's fans. What are our Hey Now Howard podcast fans going to do if he retires?
What do you think, young Tyler?
In a lot of ways, my initial reaction was that this is kind of like the last hurrah, the send off. You know what? This is it. I got a book. This book is kind of like my legacy. He's talked about that a lot. Like, this is kind of my legacy I want to leave behind.
All
for my
15
kids.
pages of content.
Yeah, right. However, like that's what he wants to leave behind. So this like his LA trip was like kind of like that's his thing he wanted to leave. But I will say I do agree. I think that he's not done. I do think that the show will change if he does sign again. I don't think that it's going to be a 3-day-a-week 4-hour show. I think it's just too much content for him to do.
Less.
I think he's going to do even less.
Sad.
Which,
but then I guess
honestly,
less
I don't.
is better than
less
none.
is for me. I think the content that they have
It
now
is, it
is almost
is.
too much. There's a lot of. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I'm all for it. Like if you stayed with the same schedule, but I mean, it's just like we both work and have shit to do.
Yeah.
There's a lot. Like I mean, it's hard.
But they don't go on stretches for like 3 weeks.
Right.
We just caught a nice stretch.
Right.
They're off a lot.
So I'm saying, if you like,
But yeah, he'll negotiate some more time off.
do
But
a
if that
3 hour
keeps him on the air.
I wouldn't even say no. I don't even say more time
he's
off.
a 7-year-old man.
Keep the same
70
schedule, but like
plus.
maybe just do a 3-hour show or something like that, and just do more interview. I just think there'd be a different. I don't know. I think he'd have to readjust the actual content and scheduling of a show. But no, the answer is I don't think he retires just yet. I think he's got one more left. This is it. Anything that happens after this, I think is the last
That's
one.
what we said the past like
Did we?
3 contracts.
It's like, yeah, I think this is it.
Yeah, he's talking about this one a lot less than previous, like renegotiations.
It'll ramp up.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It'll ramp up.
they'll start
Like,
bitching more,
right.
and that's probably a negotiation tactic too.
Of course. But it's just like, you don't think he's like really looking for more money at this point?
But I think no, it's not a money thing. Well, it's always a money thing. I'm sure he wants every dollar that he thinks he earns,
Sure.
but
it's not like I don't think he's going to walk away if the money's not right.
He's never left. He's never been shy to ask for what he thinks he's worth.
Right.
But
He was
maybe
doing
it's
that.
Sirius in a different spot. Do they think he's worth all that still? Well, do you think that he's bringing in? Let me pose you a question this way: if his new strategy is working through Marcy Turk's brilliant getting things done strategy, is this bringing in this new flock of, like, I don't hear new people talking about listening to Howard from anyone that wasn't a fan previously.
I don't either.
I don't see his stuff going. I mean, you'll hear stories break if someone makes a revelation on the show that
Which
they never
happens
admitted.
a lot more.
Which happens a ton.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
But it's also like picked up in like a news story with it being quoted as being said on the show. It's not necessarily clips of the show being spread everywhere.
Are you saying like is that equating into subscribers now to Sirius?
Exactly.
And I don't know
Or,
the answer.
new Howard fans.
New Howard fans, maybe new Howard fans, but I don't know if that equates. I think what it comes down to is does it equate to like subscribers to Sirius, and I don't know the answer to that. They never really give out the data as far as the listeners to Howard as
Right.
like in reference to the subscribers to Sirius. So they have like 30 million subscribers. That's a huge deal, or 30 plus, whatever it is now. But however many of those actually listen to Howard, nobody knows, or I have no idea. I know obviously he has
Or
a
they
huge
don't
fan
put it
base.
out there, yeah.
They don't put
They
it out there. But I'd love to know the percentages as far as like why people. I mean, I only have Sirius to listen to Howard. I have no reason to listen to it other than that.
Oh, I'll cancel the day he retires.
Right? Yeah. Exactly.
No doubt. But also I think the app has kind of revigorated things. Is that the right word?
Yes.
Sure.
We're
Let's
not
go
very
with that.
smart.
It sounded cool. But I think the app has really...
That's a
the
great
video
point.
content has really brought in a whole different layer. And he's commented, and I agree, they do a great job with musical performances. It's not just one or two cameras. They really do a great production job, editing, post-editing. They blend everything together well. And I think that that's really kind of energized things. And maybe... But then again, now we're in this era of a Howard-influenced podcast era where every celebrity now does hour-and-a-half-long interviews and gets asked. Not as well as Howard does, but if he does resign, I guess this goes towards, if he resigns and they continue down this path, is this working towards his goal of more A-listers, more listeners, new listeners?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. You're right. That like the era that we're in now, it's not that uncommon for celebrities to go on and do an hour and a half interview. You're right. Does it equate to Howard's type of interview style? Probably not. But yeah, it's interesting. I guess it remains to be seen. I mean, Howard hates on podcasts and things like that, so.
And I think that's part of the reason why.
Yeah, I don't think that he's going to be retiring and going to his own podcast network anytime soon. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
And we'll be watching all along here on the Hey Now Howard podcast.
Guys, if you could only just listen to the podcast we recorded that got erased. Whew, let me tell you.
Man, we would have won so many awards.
Ooh, one of the best things that's ever been recorded.
We're flowing.
However, now you got to listen to this piece of shit. But
come back. Our next episode, we're going to be digging into Brent and Caitlin, which is a huge Caitlin, whatever her name is, one of those, is a huge topic of LA. And Brent swinging has become like the topic of the past year. So we're going to dive into that on the Hey Now Howard podcast.
Ooh, lot to dive into.
Hit like, hit subscribe, tell your mistress. Tell everyone you know to come on by and listen to the Hey Now Howard podcast. I've been Daniel Coyne.
I'm Tyler Cortez, and we'll see you next time. Hey now!
Hit him with the high! Bye for now.